We hear a lot about conviction, like that's the key to staying in the space. And to some extent, that's true. But even worse than not having conviction is having a lot of conviction for the wrong thing. Like if you had conviction on Polkadot, that's not a great thing, right? Like you also need to have conviction on the things that are going to win.
If you had conviction on Polkadot, did you throw a dart at a dartboard? Like legit, no, that's a legit question, right?
Yeah.
Did you throw a dart at a dartboard and it hit Polkadot and you're like, that's the thing, I'm tattooing this on my shoulder and I'm going all in on it?
It means you kind of like saw some marketing around like web of things and it sounded good and you're like, oh, sounds good.
Founder of Ethereum starts a new chain.
If your conviction is more high level, let's say your conviction is that like smart contract platforms will eat into TradFi or whatever. It's the same thing during the .com days, right? Like late 90s. If you're like, okay, I'm going all in on Webvan, you were kind of right, but also kind of an idiot. Like, what were you thinking there, right? Like, if you were like, this internet thing's going to change everything and I'm putting my life savings into Webvan, I'm sorry, but I can't really help you, right? Like, you were kind of directionally right in your conviction, right? Like, you were over committed to a single thing, right? Like, go and buy some Amazon or something.
Welcome everybody, episode 57 of Steady Lads. We have a special guest today. Kain is here. Welcome, Kain.
That's the best podcast intro I've ever seen. That was amazing. That was incredible. Whoever did
Justin
that.
is smiling ear to ear. He's the one.
My biggest contribution to the show, finding Amblist who made that for us.
I mean, generally smiles all around. I think overall market is taking the punches. Hopefully Kain will be able to go with the punches pretty soon in karate as we'll get to. But look, we've had like over 10 billion dumped into the market over the last weeks by all kinds of governments and entities and Jump and it's just been insane onslaught. We've survived it. I'm actually pretty optimistic resilience is there. I think the Binance whale that I've been, posting about the last days that has shorted 10,000 Bitcoin with these massive clips. He does like 500 Bitcoin clips at a time, just like bam, bam, bam. His average entry is around 59, maybe a little bit below 59K. And he's still in that position. And I've been saying, like, if you're seeing Michael Saylor starting to bull post and you're short 10,000 Bitcoin, you can't be feeling very comfortable. So Saylor had this tweet about Bitcoin being on sale for not much longer. He says, 20% off, sale ends soon. And he's putting a target. He's saying it's going to go up 20%. I guess back to the all-time highs. Kain, I think you tried to do this with Ethereum. We have a tweet here that you're saying ETH, let's bring it up. Last time we're ever going to see ETH under 3K, and that was a month ago. It seems like
Surely it's irony, right? Last chance to buy under 3.
No, dead serious. My price calls are notoriously bad, but I think, eventually I'll be right. I'll keep posting this until I'm right, basically.
Yeah, there's like the path, but then there's also the destination. So
Yeah, this is my first time getting one of those calls wrong, for sure.
It's not your first rodeo with Ethereum as well, which is why we're super excited to have you on, because we really want to, do a little bit of group therapy, or at least Justin Bram therapy as to what's going on. To wrap up with Bitcoin, I'm pretty impressed with the resilience. I've been wondering why this Binance whale thought it was a good idea to short so much at a point where macro is doing so well. We're getting rate cuts. Gold is all-time high. Stocks are back, like fully V-recovered. Normally, Bitcoin would be around 75 to 80K if nothing was happening with all the supply stuff. So we're mispriced by a significant margin and putting on a big position that you'll have to potentially chase up. So I have this little tweet here. You're the Binance perp whale. You log in, you're down 30 million. You go to the bar and you got this guy, Michael Saylor, come up whispering in your girlfriend's ear, Bitcoin is going to go up forever. It's got to be a scary spot. So we'll see how it plays out. I'm eagerly anticipating when he's going to cover, but for now he's going strong. However, ETH BTC, last chart we'll bring up, and we'll head to talking about the fundamentals.
Why do we keep bringing this chart up, Jordy? Let's just let it rest. It's enough.
It's supposed to be a therapy episode, Jordy. This is not helping.
Well, we start with, you bring out the trauma. Whenever you do therapy, first you have to, elicit.
Right.
So we're at 0.043. It's seemingly pegged to 2,600 or like thereabouts at the moment, at least for this week. The one good thing, we finally have, Vitalik showing some signs of life in terms of what's happening here. He posted some philosophical thing, and somebody responded he's not bull posting enough, so he's given us this. He says it's he shouldn't have told us all these details. He's like, this is a stable diffusion 3 in painting plus whatever.
He can't help himself.
He can't help himself.
He can't help himself.
But it's not so bad. Like, we got something.
No, this is bullish. This is amazing. This is the most bullish Ethereum thing that I've seen in a while.
No, it's too little, too late. The time to do this was maybe 2 years ago. At this point, it's like we need a little more than a shitty picture of a bull generated by AI.
No, but Vitalik is calling the bottom on EPTC at 0.043. You can interpret it that way. And maybe, it's got 1.5 million views. It's got lots of engagement. Like this morning, like markets were down, like flat. And then he posted this, and like now everything is like pumping. So, it's the market's pumped on GCR tweets, and maybe we're pumping on Vitalik tweets now.
It's funny you were showing that ETH-BTC chart. I bought an NFT that Eric Connor minted ages ago. I think it was must be back to 2021 or something like that. And I think it was like the giga bottom of ETH-BTC. And I was looking at the chart, and I was like, we're almost about to retrace that entire thing. I think my NFT is definitely underwater, but I think that the chart on the NFT is going to be underwater soon. So, it's pretty brutal.
It'll be great to get your thoughts on NFTs as well later on, since we just had an episode on it. But let's kick off with the tweet that I would say, we brought it on the show when it happened, and it was just a very important moment because can you bring up the here we go. So you were saying if the only thing propping up your chain for the last 5 years is DeFi, and you can't muster, begrudgingly just tolerating it, you're anti-DeFi, and the default position should be that you're supporting and encouraging. And, some people thought it was about OP, and you clarified this is not OP. So I think we kind of know what it's referring to. This sounds like years of frustration here, kind of let out.
It's definitely years of frustration. And I mean, look, I love Vitalik, right? Like, I think that, he's an incredible person, and he's done incredible things. But I'm not one of the Vitalik maxis that's like, he's infallible. Right. I think there's people that are like, everything that he says is gospel, and he can do no wrong. Right. That's just I don't think that's true of anyone. Right. Like we're humans, and people get things wrong. And I think that this is one of the most critical things that he's gotten wrong over the last 5 years, is the importance of DeFi. And, he keeps trying to meme non-DeFi things into existence. And I think, again, without trying to read someone's mind, right? Like, if you were super maxi about, I don't know, messaging protocols or, identity or different use cases of smart contracts, we keep just, building financial games. I can see how there would be counter frustration, right? But the reality is, the market's right, you're not right,
Yeah.
And so if the market keeps doing this, at some point, you need to say, we don't know what our things are going to be used for, right? That's one of the best things about innovation. You build something, and, if it's a new enabling technology, people are going to do crazy shit with it, right? And if you sit there kind of moralizing and saying can we do less of this, less of that? It's not the right posture in my mind, right? At some point, Vitalik in my mind, and, I sat there so many times watching him speak, and it was literally the equivalent of stop doing DeFi. And you look around and see the other DeFi founders in the room, and you kind of look at each other and be like, is this guy on crack? How are you sitting here telling me to stop doing DeFi and do some other nonsensical thing that no one is interested in, right? it's just madness. And so I think that there is a sense of frustration from the people who've been building DeFi for a long time in the Ethereum community, that at least, like, if you're not going to encourage us, like, at least don't discourage us, right? At least don't be like, stop doing this stuff and do something that I think is cool, right? Like, it's just not like the neutral stance. Like, that the default, absolute default, worst case should be neutral.
There is one question that I have, because I totally understand where you're coming from, and we've heard from a lot of the new chains, DeFi founders. I'll single out, at least Aptos. I've heard that, at least the beginning for the first year, no support on DeFi, a lot of complaints. I think it's gotten better now, quite a lot better. But I think, some of the founders, they come in, they don't really have the DeFi, and they just think it's going to be games, it's going to be other stuff, and they don't really support it. But my question is, Ethereum's been around, what are we now, like 8 years now? At this point, does the founder matter so much in terms of what gets? Does it influence for an 8-year chain that much? What he thinks? Or?
No, right? In the sense that, like, no one's listening to Vitalik. We're all doing stuff, right? And, I got a bunch of DMs from people that were like, thank you for, and some people that posted publicly, right? But, I think I expanded the Ethereum Overton window a little bit, right? That it was okay to say, like, this is fucking bullshit, right? Like, stop discouraging the main use case of the chain, right? Like, it's fine if you want to encourage other things, but, like, the discouragement, is which, again, my view is that, like, if you're neutral, like, you're basically anti-DeFi at this point, right? So, like, does it matter what Vitalik thinks? No, people are going to do what they do, right? But the thing that I think is important is founders are still people, right? And founders still want, validation. They still want encouragement, especially as a founder, right? Like, being a founder is a hard place to be, right? Like, maybe other founders, you get a little bit of, like, support, right? But, you're running a team of 50, 100, 200 people for some of the OG DeFi projects, right? That's a lonely place to be. And so the idea that the founder of the chain that you've been grinding away on, right, is, like, discouraging of what you're doing or barely tolerating it, it just doesn't feel good as a person. Forget about, like, the market reaction, right? As a person, it just feels like, this doesn't feel amazing, right? And I think that, that's an important component that you shouldn't forget, that founders are people.
Can I ask you, Kain? I think sort of the obvious question on everyone's mind right now is, well, why have you stuck with the Ethereum ecosystem? I'm sure there are tons of other ecosystems and other founders of other chains that would do anything to court, a respected and esteemed builder like yourself. So why stick it out with Ethereum?
I think that my view is still that Ethereum's trade-offs are the right set of trade-offs, right? That said, I'm not building protocols anymore. Infinex is not a protocol. It's something different, right? And so, the posture with Infinex is much more agnostic. And I've tried to do more to engage with the Solana community. We're looking at other chains as well. We support a bunch of L2s. So, my posture has shifted, and I've had to kind of step back a little bit and try and be a bit more neutral, I guess, myself, right? But I still believe that, the trade-offs that Ethereum has chosen are, for now, the right set of trade-offs.
Yeah. And the follow-up question I have is, I was talking to Mark Zeller of Aave, and he was telling me that, it seems like Vitalik is somewhat anti-DeFi, and the only protocols he supports is Maker and Uniswap. And, there was a little bit of tension there because I feel like Aave has one of the best product market fits on chain, at least. And for Vitalik to not be pro Aave doesn't make sense to me. Like, why do you think Vitalik is so anti, I guess, speculation in DeFi? Is it purely the speculation aspect, or is there more to that?
Look, I've found this to be the case, right? And I think that there are other founders who found this to be the case. There is a cabal in Ethereum, right? Like, there's a sort of inner circle of people in Ethereum, and they're a bit detached from reality in the nicest possible way, right? They're very insulated from the realities of the market, right? And, there's some people inside that group that are not, right? That are very pragmatic, like someone like Eric Connor, right? who helped get like 1559 over the line, right? Like there are still, this is not a homogenous group, right? There are people that have different perspectives inside this group, but a lot of the people, I think, are, very influenced by the way that Vitalik thinks. And if, Vitalik is publicly discouraging of DeFi or not encouraging of DeFi, then, that's kind of the public stance of the EF as well. And I think that Aave is not in that inner circle is part of the reason why, right? That's just the harsh reality. Whereas, Hayden obviously is much closer to that inner circle of people. So therefore you get more attention and support.
Kain, this sort of strikes me as sort of like a luxury belief of not wanting to support DeFi. If like you've already had your success building Ethereum, speculating on Ethereum early, and then you can have this luxury belief that like we don't want the chain to be just about DeFi, speculation, money games, etc. We want it to be about like more related to public goods or some of the other things you referenced. Would you agree with that sentiment that this sort of out of touch behavior comes from this luxury belief system where you've already sort of made it and you don't have to worry about this?
I think that's a very, very good point, right? Like, it's the same thing for like, oh, I don't care about money, right? Vitalik has this view, he's memed into existence, this narrative of like Vitalik doesn't care about money. Yeah, really? Like, I'm not 100% sure that I'm convinced of that, right? It sounds great. It's a great tagline to have, on a biography. But this idea that like Vitalik has no financial incentive, sure, post-billionaire status, it's easy to be like, I don't care about money, right? But like, I'm just not 100% convinced, right? And like that statement is probably going to get a lot of heat, I would imagine, right? Because people are like, how dare you? Vitalik is this, aesthete person living on a mountain, traveling economy or whatever. But not money is not just about, are you flying, private or first class or whatever, or, do you have like luxury watches or, cars or stuff? Money is about power and control, right? And just because you don't spend your money on luxury items doesn't mean that you do not want to control your environment, right? And I think the primary driver of a lot of people as founders that I know is to have control of their own destiny, right? Money gives you control and power over the environment. And so this idea that like Vitalik is completely detached from that, frankly, I just don't buy it. Like I think if you look at Vitalik's behavior in the early days, especially, like stuff around Bitcoin Magazine, of course he was in it for the tech, but he was absolutely also in it for the financial upside. Like you just cannot possibly disabuse me of that idea.
I mean, there might be some of this, effective altruism type of thing of like, well, I care about these causes and I can invest a lot of money in charity to these causes that I care about. It's not about money, but the money helps get those causes and it's about the causes. So thankfully, like, I don't think we're dealing with an individual, anything like, the SBF type of situation that we saw. So we're definitely not dealing with that.
To be clear, right? Like I it's someone who's like out there doing fraud and stealing people's money. Like that's a different thing, right? But like I'm motivated by money. Like, I very early on in my life, I worked out that like money is the points in the game that gives you control over your environment. And I'm like, well, all things being equal, I would prefer to have more control over my environment than less. Like, so I'm going to optimize my behavior to get that outcome. Like, yeah, Vitalik's not an idiot, right? Like,
And even if like, you can make a case that he's quite clean. You mentioned a cabal, and I'm sure our listeners will want to like dig in at least a little bit. And I know we can't dig in that much because it's always ephemeral, it's like talking about the Illuminati, but we hear about cabals often, like chains have cabals. Solana, I think we kind of, I saw like Joe McCann like calls himself the bonk commander now. So it's pretty clear, some of the...
He's a Michael Saylor bonk, he calls himself.
Yeah, like he has his little podcast where he has this title now. In Ethereum, we seem to have some cabals. Like you said, there's maybe like the EF cabal. There's some meme coin, like Pepe, from what I understand, has like a little bit of a cabal. Are these people that were just like very early, have made a ton of money, and now, they still hold a lot of the coin, and they sort of have a lot of influence? Or is it idealistic?
Same thing with the EF cabal, right? Like the Ethereum deep state, let's call it, right? Is like not all of them are, not all of those people are, like Deca hecto-millionaires, right? Like, you know, there's a lot of those people that for them, it's actually power, right? You know, it's they're close to the thing and they have some control and there's a social cachet. You know, they deeply care about the tech and they want to be able to influence the tech pipeline, right? You know, but this is also something that I think is capturable, right? And we've seen people do it, you know, at times, right? Come into the Ethereum community and you're like, where did this person come from, right? And all of a sudden, you know, they've got like Lane Reddick is a great example, right? Like all of a sudden, Lane Reddick just pops up out of nowhere, and you're like, how is this guy speaking at DevCon? Like I've never heard of him prior to 3 months ago, but he, like in the nicest possible way, I think is like a bit of a grifter and has like found his way through that like social sort of cachet, right? And you know, been able to like, you know, now he's kind of out of that Ethereum group and has gone off and done his own thing, right? But there was a period of time where I was like, this guy's captured a big chunk of like the social game of Ethereum, right? But it is a big social game.
And that's maybe bad. Like I kind of like the Naval philosophy, and he talks about how like there's the money ladder where you try to make money, and there's the social status game ladder, and he says you should play the money ladder. Like that's the clean one, not this other one. And we see like in places like Singapore where I live that they pay the politicians millions of dollars so that, you know, they're kind of a little bit less corruptible to these things, and maybe that's not a bad thing. I mean, having Justin Drake and these guys, you know, get tons of money from like Eigenlayer, and then there's all these questions around, and then, you know, they have to kind of give it back, and like it gets so messy, right?
But so this is the interesting thing. This is why I say, like, you know, less like if you're and look, you know, I think a lot of people, if someone offers you free money, are you going to take it, right? Sure. But you know, if people in the EF, and I think also like the EF probably was less generous, let's say, right, than some other organizations when it comes to, you know, people who like Justin Drake's amazing, right? Like has done so much for Ethereum, right? Like I would hope that Justin Drake is sitting on 10, 15, 20,000 ETH, but I doubt that's the case, right? So if someone turns up and says, hey, you know, here's a giant bag of Eigen, what are you going to do, right? Like you've been grinding away for a long time and you feel like you've you know, maybe got a particular perspective that would be valuable to this project, right? Like everyone else is making money. Why shouldn't I? That's risky.
On the note of this cabal, I wanted to like double click on where you think Ethereum stands. So I've always had this theory that Ethereum like loves to LARP, is like incredibly decentralized. But like the fact of the matter is it's a very small number of people that sort of determine the roadmap, right? Like the four of us here likely don't have much of a say. I mean, we could try to drum up some excitement on Twitter, get people interested in a concept or EIP we want to push. Very unlikely it happens. The Ethereum Foundation has 3 people on the board. I think Vitalik has the majority of votes. Not that the EF controls, you know, Ethereum policy, but like how much of this is controlled by Vitalik in your estimation? I mean, would you agree? What I believe to be true is that like Vitalik generally sets the roadmap and people sort of fall in line.
Yeah, so I think obviously Vitalik has a lot of soft power, right? And you know, this is something that I'm very familiar with because it was the same situation that I had in Synthetix, right? You know, I had a lot of soft power. If I had turned up and said, hey, you know, we should do X, right? I would say the balance of probabilities, there was like a 75% chance that would happen, right? Mm-hmm. For reasons. Now, where was that 75? I'm pretty convincing, and I can be super annoying if I want something, and I will just kind of grind you down, right? If you're disagreeing with me, and you know, when you have an open kind of forum to talk about this stuff, like, you know, I think Vitalik has a lot of soft power, but not every time do you get what you want, right? Like it's not a dictatorship. And this is the same thing with Synthetix. There were plenty of things that I cared deeply about in Synthetix that just never happened. I couldn't get it over the line because for whatever reason, you know, people thought my motives were bad or whatever. And so, you know, I think that there are a lot of examples in Ethereum where Vitalik, I mean, if Vitalik were a dictator, there'd be less DeFi on Ethereum. There you go. Like legitimately, like maybe Aave wouldn't exist, right? Like there would be less, you know, certainly things like Ohm and, you know, weird like algo Ponzi's wouldn't exist, right? Like if Vitalik could wave a magic wand and get rid of this shit that he didn't like, We would have a very different Ethereum. So from that perspective, like Vitalik does not control the chain at all, right? The roadmap, sure, of course, but he also understands it better than basically anyone else on the planet. So in the same way that I understand Synthetix much better than most people, or at least I used to, right? When I was pushing for these things. So
yeah, and speaking of the ETH roadmap and Synthetix, I believe, SNX was one of the first projects to deploy in Optimism, I believe in 2021. What do you think about the whole Ethereum scaling roadmap? I saw the David Hoffman tweet. Maybe the teams have been prioritizing L2s too much, and we should reprioritize our focus on L1. I guess like as a project founder that's building or that's built, SNX on Optimism and also building Infinex across multiple L2s. What do you think of like where L2s are?
I can understand where the motivation of that tweet is coming from, right? It's a little bit of, and I love Dave Hoffman, right? But like, it's a little bit of Solana code.
You got to give him some love pretty soon, that's for sure.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Do we have the poster up? Can you find the poster, Justin, while Kain continues?
Yeah. So this tweet I think is like a little bit of Solana code, right? It's a bit of fear. There's a bit of fear creeping in of like, what if we're wrong, right? And I don't think we're wrong. I'm very confident that that the scaling roadmap that Ethereum has is, in the short to medium term, like very credible. And I spent a lot of time trying to meme it into existence, and help to kind of get it going. And so I'm very bullish on it. I think, one of the things though, as I've started to build Infinex over the last year and a half, right, I've had to step back and really separate myself from a lot of the code that we have in Ethereum and in DeFi about different things and the way that they're done. And even like just on-chain generally, right? Forget about Ethereum. Like just, I look at on-chain as one thing, and then centralized exchanges and CeFi lenders and all of the CeFi stuff as a separate thing. There's a whole bunch of really nonsensical shit that we believe in DeFi and on-chain land that I've had to let go of in trying to figure out how to credibly compete with CeFi.
I want to get into that. Let's kind of just to wrap up the, this like L2 roadmap question, and maybe to get like a clear answer from you, hopefully, on like, was this a mistake or not? Do you think it's just a matter of time until the user experience gets abstracted away and it doesn't matter what L2 you're on, or is there going to be a couple like super chain and hyper chain and a few different worlds that are going to exist? Or what do you think happens? And do you think this was a good idea?
I don't think it's. I think it's unequivocally not a mistake. Like I'm as convinced. I'm actually more convinced today than I was in the past. What it will take is people, approaching things from a different direction, right? Approaching things from the user experience first and moving down. And people have tried to do this, but I think that it's like being early is the same as being wrong, right? There's plenty of people, Dharma, Argent, that were like, all right, we're going to solve the UX, but they were solving it like banging rocks together, honestly. Like it was just never going to work, right? And so, I think that today the infra that we have is kind of ready, but it takes a different approach. And, people are burnt out. Like so many people have been like, oh, we're going to build an on-chain super app or whatever, right? Like people have been saying this shit for years. And it never happens for reasons. So of course, someone else turns up and says, okay, I'm really going to do it. Like, why should you believe me? Right. Like, it's not a credible statement to make. Right. But we're going to. And so at that point, when you've abstracted away all these chains, you really, you need to have alternative methods of scaling.
What about this middleware thing like Polygon, for example, where they want to have their token be staked in the middle, and they're going to make sure that all the other L2s can, talk with each other and kind of have ZK proofs around their communication to make the user experience?
I mean, look, like I'm here for people continuing to build infra. Like, please keep doing it. Like, build as much infra as you can. We will abstract away that infra faster than you can build it. Like we're starting to gain momentum here, when it comes to Infinex, right? So like all day, if someone thinks that they are going to build some new middleware infra interop layer, awesome. by all means, go nuts, right? We're just going to cherry pick the best stuff. That's the plan, right? So, I'm not going to discourage anyone from doing that, but my honest view is that we have enough infra today to get to feature parity. There's just things that have been missing for reasons, and we've had a weird perspective, and I think that if you shift your perspective, it all sort of falls into place very quickly.
Yeah, and to get philosophical for a second, I mean, the good thing about death is that there's like natural selection allowed by it, because survival of the fittest, and not everyone survives. Not every idea is a good idea. We don't have to have everything forever. Blockchains are very new, like this is like just a few years old, but one of the annoying things is that it's so hard to like wrap up a token, these things live on forever. Like if you're not going to, there's always going to be some people having some money somewhere and switching off. Again, look at Polkadot. It's not necessarily like super alive right now. It doesn't mean that it's going to go away next year because it didn't win the game this year. Like it'll drag on who knows for how many years. Does that slow down this process of getting like cherry picking? Or
I think we're just not an efficient market, honestly, right? Like the market is still inefficient, super inefficient, right? And you can tell how inefficient a market is by like how dumb the ultra rich people are, and people who can turn up and like just get like giga rich in like 20 minutes, and you're like, this is not reasonable, right? Like you should, there's just such high variance, right, in the outcomes still, because the market is so inefficient that like someone can YOLO turn up and like 20 minutes later they're worth $1 million. Like that's not a normal market. That's not how markets are supposed to work. So if you want to measure the inefficiency, like look at the people running around at crypto conferences that have gotten rich in the last 18 months, and that should be all the signal that you need there.
Yeah, and when you said stupid, I thought of this tweet where this is like a pump.fun deployer. Crackhead dev just gets his head shaved by a stripper, now smoking crack. Is this the future of finance? And there's 3,000 viewers. I mean, that's a lot more users than a lot of other DeFi apps. But I mean, this is what's getting all the attention. And maybe it's because people are bored. There's nothing else to do, so these apps are watch people smoke crack.
Yeah, on that note, Kain, like, what are your thoughts on this financial nihilism that we've seen? Like, oh, none of these coins are worth anything. They're never giving value back to the users. None of these apps are even making money. That's a generalization, of course, but like broadly, they're not. So like, F it, let's just play around with meme coins. Like, are you receptive to that, or do you think it's more toxic?
I'm not receptive to it, but I understand where it comes from. It comes from a place of fear, right? Like if you imagine, the people who have been around for like half a cycle, right? I say this all the time. Like the best thing that you can do in crypto is like cultivate conviction. Find the place where you have some conviction that you're not going to be shaken out of, and then you're fine, right? If you're low conviction, then yeah, like financial nihilism sounds great right now, right? Like, fuck it, nothing matters, right? Because, everything that I thought I believed has turned out to be wrong or whatever. And it's like, yeah, on this time frame, everything that you believed is wrong. But like on a long enough time frame, if you have conviction, then no, it'll be fine.
To push back a little, we hear a lot about conviction, like that's the key to staying in the space. And to some extent, that's true. But even worse than not having conviction is having a lot of conviction for the wrong thing. Like we talked about Polkadot. If you had conviction on Polkadot, that's not a great thing, right? Like you also need to have conviction on the things that are going to win, which is a much harder skill than just having conviction.
Okay, here's the question, right? Like if you had conviction on Polkadot, what were you actually convicted of? That, did you throw a dart at a dartboard? Like legit, like no, that's a legit question, right?
Yeah.
Did you throw a dart at a dartboard and it hit Polkadot and you're like, that's the thing, I'm tattooing this on my shoulder and I'm going all in on it? Like you probably, like you can't have idiotic conviction, right? Like it has to have some basis in reality, right?
It means you kind of like, you saw some marketing around like this web of things and it sounded good and you're like, oh, sounds good.
Founder of Ethereum starts a new chain.
Yeah, I mean, okay, cool. Like for sure, right? Like, and again, this is where I say like there's such high variance of outcomes, right? Like, having conviction at the end of the day, right? If you were so bought into Polkadot, right, that you went all in on Polkadot and nothing else, right? That's just a bad trade, right? Like if your conviction is more high level, let's say your conviction is that like smart contract platforms will, shift or eat into TradFi or whatever, right? And then, you go all in. Like, it's the same thing during the .com days, right? Like late 90s. If you're like, okay, I'm going all in on Webvan, like you were kind of right, but also kind of an idiot. Like, what were you thinking there, right? Like, if you were like, this internet thing's going to change everything and I'm putting my life savings into Webvan, I'm sorry, but I can't really help you, right? Like, you were kind of directionally right in your conviction, right? Like, you were overcommitted to a single thing, right? Like, go and buy some Amazon or something.
But to add to that, I think, when you, with Synthetix, right, you did ICO in 2017, I believe. And, despite the 2018-19 bear market, you stuck with it. And maybe other people would have thought that you're crazy, but you kept that conviction. Like, what did you see, like, I guess back then and even now, to want to even continue building in DeFi and build something of value?
Yeah, I think what I saw is that, Ethereum was like so early. In 2017, we had zero things that were actually, doing stuff on chain, right? It was like, there were like crypto kitties and crypto, like there's just a few things. We didn't have complex smart contract suites really operating, right? And so, I was like, this thing is so powerful and we haven't even scratched the surface. Like, if you just keep doing stuff here, eventually something's going to land. That was literally my thesis, right? And yeah, that was right. It was directionally right. But again, like, I didn't go, I had exposure to a bunch of stuff. I had exposure to ETH. I still had exposure to Bitcoin even then, right? Like, if you sold all your Bitcoin in 2017 to buy ETH, right? What was your thesis there? Like, legitimately, like, it's one thing to say like, okay, I think that this thing is going to do better, right? But if you're like, crypto makes a lot of sense and Ethereum is going to be successful, but Bitcoin is going to die, like, you didn't think that one out, in my opinion, right? Like, you missed something in that, right? So like, Justin, I think to your point, right? Like, okay, you've got to have conviction, but like, having dumb conviction is just as dangerous. So like, you need to have some conviction that's built off like some thesis, right? Like, there's not free money. You don't get to turn up and just be really convicted about nonsense and like make a bunch of money, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, you do. Unfortunately,
some people do.
Some people
not
do,
me
right?
for some
But,
reason.
I'm sorry for your loss.
But Kain, so like, aside from Infinex and projects you're working on now, where is that conviction for you? Is it still in Ethereum mostly? Is it on other networks, other tokens, DeFi apps?
It's Ethereum. It is it's Solana. It's some of the new stuff that's coming out. Like, I think it's still smart contract chains. Like, I still deeply believe that smart contract platforms are going to change how the world coordinates itself. Like, that's my thesis, right? And at different times I've been more or less convicted about like sub theses within that like larger thesis, but that's my thesis, is that like, the world needs to coordinate itself, and this is the best coordination mechanism that we've ever seen.
Let's get to the difficult questions. So
wait, there's more difficult questions than this?
Yeah, quite a lot more difficult.
All right. Okay.
Well, the hardest one is probably around the money question. Obviously, like, ETH had this ultrasound money meme attempted, not being talked about and also being blamed for, potentially like losing some of the path here. On the other hand, the fees are down at like zero and it's not even deflationary anymore. So in order for ETH to do well, it actually, I've been arguing it needs to be some sort of community money. What is your thoughts on the ETH moneyness?
Look, there's so many post hoc rationalizations, right? And counter rationalizations that creep in. Like, I actually just read Reminiscences of a Stock Operator, which is I'd been meaning to read it for a long time, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna, it's a 100-year-old book, right? So there's plenty of time to read it. It wasn't necessarily topical, but actually it is, right? Like, it's amazing to see. You got this guy that's like trading at the turn of last century, and it's identical. And in fact, I think like by going so far back, you've gone to like an early period in equities trading, right? You've got like people running bucket shops and stuff. Like this guy makes his money in bucket shops starting off, right? Which is like, you know, when we first started Synthetix, I had so many people like, it's just a bucket shop. And I'm like, yeah, like kind of, right? Like in a way, you know, it rhymes with bucket shop. But yeah, so, you know, the interesting thing to me, I guess, is like when I look at the mass psychology, right? The narratives then were like railroads. It was like, and then people would get, you know, overexposed and they'd be like, maybe railroads are not going to be a thing, right? And they'd lose hope. And it's like, well, like, you know, railroads are not really a thing now. Like, you know, no one's buying railroad stocks, right? But like at that time, like it was like railroads and like, you know, weird shit that we don't care about anymore, right? Like those were their like peak narratives that they were super excited about, right? And you know, like over a long enough time horizon, it's like they just, you know, you get over indexed and then under indexed. And so, you know, this idea of like Ethereum needs fees or doesn't need fees or whatever, like I just zoom back out and I'm like, this is a new enabling technology that is allowing us to coordinate ourselves globally, right? Across jurisdictions, across regulatory frameworks, right? Like it's just going to work. It's just going to work. It's going to be a thing that's going to stick around. I'm not too worried about like, is it going to be valuable because of its ultrasound moneyness? Like I just don't care about that. I care about whether like at a fundamental level, it's going to have an impact on how we coordinate ourselves. And I think it will. So I think like a lot of the narratives we get caught up in are, you know, again, just like kind of short-term nonsense.
In a sense, they are. In a sense, they're not, because people also want to have some bucket to put things in, like Bitcoin, gold. Okay, that's like a bucket. It's very clear. With Solana, it's even more confusing because, you know, we've talked about this before and we had Austin on the show, and Solana itself is weird because a lot of people want to push this like Sol as money or whatever, even though, you know, Anatoly himself is like, I don't care if Solana is worthless. I just want all the apps on it to be worth a lot. And that's kind of like a success. He has like this approach. And with ETH, I've been arguing these points have community money. And community money is only strong if the community is strong. It means like there's a lot of people that know that other people care about this thing. Just like artwork around like, you know, Da Vinci paintings. Community strong. All the rich people want this thing. They understand it's valuable, and it creates this aura. And here's the funny thing we've learned from meme coin season. Apparently, if a meme coin is under 100 million, not cheap, it's just like overvalued. But if it's over 100 million, it's in a different category. And in that category, you know, it can be 101 million and suddenly it's cheap. Because now you're in the like legitimate breakout category, and you know 3 billion is you're kind of viewed as in proportion to Dogecoin or Bonk or whatever, like that the tier one. So the worry I have for Ethereum right now is community is kind of weak, maybe because they're confused by all the roadmaps and this and that, fragmented. Some people are saying it's because they left Twitter to go to like, you know, other social media apps. So we're seeing less of it on Twitter, and Twitter is so important. I kind of buy it, actually. Like, it's unclear, but like maybe there's some truth to it. Bottom line, like the community aspect is weakened, and you can draw a line different than meme coin. So it's not 100 million. I would say for like any money characteristics or community money or anything, it's probably 100 billion, or it's probably higher because we have had, you know, Cardano or BNB go close there. So maybe let's call it like 300 billion, where you start becoming like a real financial asset that Bloomberg will talk about if it moves more than 10%. Like it'll be a story on Bloomberg. Ethereum is kind of like teetering, where it had this chance to be like the second digital asset that, you know, has an ETF, it's a CME futures, has all this stuff. It can break that barrier, and it's going back and forth, bouncing back and forth.
We're in a choppy market, my friend. Like all, like in the nicest possible way, all of that is noise to me. It's all attempts to like construct a thing to make sense of the world today, right? And you know, you talk about Bitcoin as gold. Like what is that narrative, the Bitcoin gold? It's just a proxy for conviction, right? it's just a soundbite version of having conviction, right? Like, where does the idea of Bitcoin as gold come from? If you actually dig through that and you go, well, okay, gold versus Bitcoin, they're not exactly the same, and there's different trade-offs, but like they have similar properties, right? But to understand those properties, you need to go deep into like, why does the tech work? And so it's easy to just be like, it's gold, digital gold, cool, right? And it's just a shortcut, right, to a narrative, and that's why it works, because most people don't want to do the work. So the problem for Ethereum, I think, is, to your point, the narratives are too complex, right? And whatever narrative does emerge, if that is undermined, which the ultrasound money narrative has been undermined, right? People are going to lose conviction. If that was their proxy for why they cared about Ethereum, then you need to come up with a new narrative, because you need a new proxy for what the real thing is, which is, it's just a coordination scheme, right?
It is a coordination scheme, but doesn't that make you like feel like we're in upside down land, where if something gets cheaper in value, it actually becomes like overvalued, and the reverse is true. Like if something starts going up, the reflexivity, it changes categories of things of importance in the world, and now it becomes cheap. Like because now we're comparing it to like, well, the market cap of gold is 15 trillion, and this is like 2 trillion. Like it's like we're in a different category, and it's so weird that this happens, because it's so non-fundamental.
It's it's just psychological. Like it's just mass psychology, right? Like people are looking for something to believe, right? And there's like layers upon layers, and as you go higher up the layers, right, it gets more generalized, right? Digital gold, right? Digital oil. Remember there was a period where people were like, oh, ETH is like digital oil.
Yeah.
Right? What the fuck does that mean? Like
a triple point asset as well.
Yeah, well, like whatever, right? Like, a 2-digit shitcoin, right? I think if you want to really drill down into like, why does Ethereum feel so dark right now? The honest fact is that most of the people who did really well, right, whether ETH is at 1K, 2K, 3K, 5K, 10K, it doesn't meaningfully change anything about their situation, right? Like, if you're sitting on 5,000-10,000 ETH, like you're fine, regardless of what price that is, right? Like, so you have this issue, right, where like a Sol under $10, right, and then it does a 20x. Of course, those people are going to have more conviction. Like, of course they will, right? Like, conviction is self-reinforcing, right? Like, you buy something, it goes up, and you're like, I was right. There's a whole bunch of people in Solana in this cycle that are not just rich, but they were right. They were buying Solana under $10, and now they're like diehard. The same thing with Link Marines, same thing with a bunch of like early communities, right? So the people who survived the FTX collapse of Solana, and Solana's going to zero and all that stuff, who were still buying or didn't sell under $10 and rode it up to 150, 200, those people are both right and rich. And Ethereum doesn't have that right now. The lost cohort of people, sure, they're right and rich, but they're like sitting on a beach somewhere in Paris.
Right, rich, and retired. The 3 R's.
Yeah. That's the problem, is you need a new group of people to come in, right? So, and like it sounds very cynical to say this, but it's just the truth. Like, we're humans. You can wish that we were different, but we're not. That's just how we are. That's how mass psychology works.
Cool. Well, let's go to some lighter stuff. We have some fun, kind of quick topics we want to roll through with you. But I think we should start with the this karate boxing. Like, tell us, like, is this a new thing? Have you been fighting before? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, good question. So I've got like a little bit of a family history, I guess, right, of boxing and stuff. My uncle was a boxer. Grant, my younger brother, was an amateur boxer. For a few years, he still boxes a bit. I did karate and stuff growing up, and boxed a little bit in high school. So it's been a while. It's been solidly 20 years since I've been in the ring, even sparring. So it's gonna be interesting. But where did this come from? It came from Suzu sent me a message like late last year, right? It was like, hey, bro, like, I'm sorry, I was arrogant, like, whatever. And I read it, and again, maybe this is being a little too cynical as well. But I'm like, game theoretically, responding to this message is the worst possible thing that I can do. Because if I respond to this message and say, hey, thank you for this, heartfelt apology or whatever, he is absolutely going to take that and run around for the next 6 months being like, Kain and I are good friends now, to everyone that he can find, right? It's water under the bridge. Don't worry about the fact that, I was a piece of shit that blew up the entire industry, right? Like this guy, we're going to grab a beer later, right? And so I was like, I'm not going to respond to this. I'll just leave it, right? And then I saw him in Brussels and I was like, I can't believe this guy is just walking around in the open. Like, how is this even possible, right? And one of the kids that I work with is a kickboxer and we were talking about karate combat. And I was like, you know what? I should challenge Suzu. That'll be a way to settle it, right? So I sent him a message and I was like, hey, why don't we settle this in the ring in Singapore? And his response was, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be in Singapore. And I was like, don't you live there? Like, what? Like, you're not sure if you're going to be there? And then he didn't respond for a little while. And like a couple of people were asking about it. They're like, hey, did you challenge Suzu? And I was like, yeah, he's kind of ghosted me. So eventually I was like, all right, I need to do something about this. And then David Hoffman messaged me and was like, hey, what happened with the Suzu thing? And I was like, oh, he's not going to do it, right? And he's like, will you fight me? And I was like, okay, but I think like we're a little, off in weight class.
Also, like there's a little bit of age difference. We're going to be doing like Mike Tyson, Jake Paul kind of thing.
Yeah. Exactly. So, but anyway, so we talked about it and we talked to the promoters and they're like, if you guys can, meet in the middle somewhere in your weight classes and get to like 175, 170, 175, we can make it happen. So, unfortunately I missed out on Suzu. Now Nick Carter's going after Suzu, it sounds like, which is pretty dark for Sue. I think, Nick would probably murder him. So,
but Nick was supposed to fight David and then David got injured, right? And so you're sort of Nick's replacement here.
Yeah, I think so. And look, without trying to dig too deep into David's psychology, I'm a good friend of his, right? And one thing that I think he struggles with is like any criticism on the internet. Let's put it that way, right? He takes it really personally, right? And so I have to imagine that after, people were making fun of him, being like, oh, you're worried about fighting Nick or whatever. He's like, all right, I'm going to find the biggest, most insane guy I can find to fight. I'm going to prove you all wrong, right? And so
is that you, Kain? The biggest, most insane guy he can fight?
I think that was offering to fight people. He was like, of course he can pick a professional fighter or something like that. But he's like, this guy's like trying to challenge Suzu. What if I grab him? And so I was like, dude, like I'm 30 pounds heavier than you, but all right, if you're down for it, let's do it. So.
Yeah, I mean, to close the loop here on this thing. So can you just like remind some of our audience that maybe was in a hole back then? So Suzu, kind of made some tweets and he was pointing out like your houses, or what exactly?
It actually started before that, right? So and it's quite funny. I wish that I had screenshots of this. So I was talking to Kieran, my little brother, while this whole thing was going on, right? And so I subtweeted Sue, saying, there's these fucking people that are running around going and chasing all these other narratives, right? And eventually they're going to come back. You can probably find the tweet, but
this was like the avalanche.
Yeah. This is
right.
red triangle, avalanche is the future sort of thing, right? And I'm like, as soon as we get to L2 scaling, right? Because this was like another narrative dark spot for Ethereum, right? That like L2s weren't working, it was not real, mainnet was too expensive, blah, 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 which in fairness it was, right? And I was like, as soon as L2 scaling lands, like these guys are going to come flooding back in, they're going to be shilling ETH again, like, but don't forget that they were running around shilling fucking crazy stuff, right? And so he obviously knew that I was subtweeting him, right? And so, he was like, came over the top and was like, hey, blah, 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 like, how dare you, look at your houses or whatever, which was kind of nonsensical, right? But I had him on tilt and I was like, all right. And I was messaging Kieran and I was like, just watch this, right? And I kept poking and poking and poking. And then the next morning, he wakes up after 12 hours of stewing on this, right? And it's like, all right, fine, I have abandoned Ethereum. And it's bad. And like the Ethereum people were like, holy shit, like what just happened, right? Like, and I literally screenshot it and sent it to Kieran, and I was like, we got him, boys. And he was like, wow, I can't believe that actually worked. Like, he was just, I think obviously he was under
a lot of stress, right, at that time for reasons.
And to give him some points, he did like a week after that come back with one of the all-time pastas of, I'm back, guys. I wasn't just gonna let you all, circle jerk to the burn without me or something.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know what was going on exactly, but I thought it was quite funny that he was trying to play this magnanimous thing, and then I kind of got in his head, and he was like, all right, fine, fuck Ethereum, and I was like, okay, there we go.
It is sort of interesting that what Sue was calling out then is now what we're talking about on this podcast today in some respects, right? And it's sort of where the conversation has shifted.
As in, like, gas is very low, right? It's we wish that we can, I guess, circle jerk to the Ethereum burn.
Well, Sue is really talking about the user experience, and I think, in some degrees, it's talking about the burn not being relevant. Jordy, we all talked about on this podcast of the burn not being potentially sustainable with L2s, and it's just interesting to see how that conversation has changed to when this was like a very much a consensus viewpoint back then.
Yeah.
Well, Kain, as long as you are not holding some massive on-chain Aave liquidation for your houses and you're not going to get liquidated on them, then I think
hopefully not.
That's okay.
Not. Yeah. Yeah, I think we're okay. I mean, the funny thing about that, talking about, Curve, right? Bodhi, our prop fund, we bought a giant bag of Curve to help bail Michael out, back then.
This was the first time, and it was like the 30 cents thing, whatever.
Yeah, the first time, we bought a bunch. I think I don't even know, it was like $500,000 or something like that, right? Just throwing in, trying to help out. But that that whole thing, that whole situation, right, is literally my entire life for the last 5 years, right? People don't realize this, but like Synthetix is a leverage machine. It's all leverage. You can't actually participate without having leverage, right? And it's all SNX. So, one of the reasons why I did, one of the reasons why I did so well is in 2019, when SNX started running up from like 3 cents to 30 cents, it's built in leverage. You could just borrow more SUSD, right? And people really wanted SUSD at that time for reasons, right? They were trying to go into like different yield farming opportunities or whatever. And so you could sell as much SUSD as you could print, right? And so that whole period, I was like selling SUSD into ETH and accumulated a lot of ETH, right? Like sub $300. But when it got to, 2021, right? And SNX, the market cap was like 6 billion. There was something like $2 billion worth of SUSD debt or something crazy like that, right? Now, obviously, it's in different synths and in different places, but like there's about $2 billion worth of debt in the system. That $2 billion worth of debt unwound over the course of like 2 months from like 2 billion down to like 300 million. And so as you can imagine, I'm sitting there, I got a bunch of debt, and I'm like finding Bitcoin, finding whatever I can to pay it down, right? So, I definitely felt for Michael,
This rise to, Synthetix, to your point, was $25 a token. It's $1.50 now, so it's over 15x higher in market cap. This must have been the craziest feeling, right? When Synthetix was worth, you said, $6 billion. I mean, you must have felt like a whole range of emotions. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I woke up one day and Synthetix was worth more than Qantas, and I was like, I guess that means that I've made it, right? Like, because like this is, remember COVID, right? Qantas it was like Synthetix is this and Qantas is there, and I was like, it feels weird, right? Like I remember joking, being like, I don't know if we're 100% nailing this pricing dynamic here. Like,
it's not a bubble. It's like I'm that good. I built this. It makes sense. No bubble. No bubble.
Yeah, no. Like I was literally like the Qantas SNX ratio seems a little mispriced here, in some direction. But like I obviously think that we paid for that. Like all of DeFi paid for that. Post DeFi summer excitement, right? Like we ran it up 6 months before the actual top of everything else, right? And DeFi's been basically down only ever since until like the last like month, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. We've had a little bit of outperformance. I guess the interesting thing for me is like the goal of Infinex is to use all of this DeFi stuff that we've been building and make it accessible to people, right? Like that's what we're trying to do. So, hopefully that helps with awareness. Put it that way.
Yeah. And like you said, I think some DeFi coins have been doing pretty well recently, and outperforming some of the memes. Right now you're focusing, I guess, Infinex, and, the website says that, it's trying to be the secure passport to DeFi. What's the ultimate vision here? You talked earlier about how there's been so many account abstraction projects that's gone to zero. Like, what makes you think that this is, the one to actually fix that problem?
I think because I've discarded a lot of the nonsense that I believed as a protocol founder, right? Like as a founder, you have to believe certain things, right? Even to start a startup, right? You have to kind of ignore probabilities, right? You got a 98% chance of failure or whatever. And you're like, but not me. I'm good, right? Like I'm not going to fail, right? Same thing as a trader, right? You're like, all right, 100x leverage, here we go. Like I'm not going to get liquidated, right? There requires a little bit of like suspension of disbelief, right? And just jumping into something. So, if you're a DeFi protocol founder, okay, there's some things that you need to believe, right? You need to believe that like Ethereum is going to scale, right? You need to believe that like DeFi is going to replace TradFi, right? You need to believe also that like DeFi is better than CeFi. And one of the core beliefs is that non-custodial platforms are better than custodial platforms. And this is the thing that has driven, I would say, the most kind of nonsensical beliefs, that core idea, right? And as I've stepped back from this and actually looked at it from a user perspective and said, what does the user want? What does a Binance user really want, right? You start to find some hilarious things that you realize you believe, right? So Near chain signatures launched last week, right? And if you're a Near maxi, right, you're going to turn up to a Binance user and be like, can you believe that we can now trade USDT into Doge? And a Binance user is going to be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like I'm doing it right now. I'm literally trading Doge and USDT right now. And it's like, no, you don't get it. We can trade USDT into Doge. And they're like, yeah, no, I can click a button and do that. And it's like, no, but that's not real because it's in CZ's database. And it's like, from a user perspective, like, what are you talking about? Like, you're legitimately saying that that's not a real thing. Who cares what the mechanism by which, like, I have exposure to Doge, I had USDT, now I have Doge, done, right? I've solved my problem, I had a job, get more Doge, right? And we just have these ideas that are like baked into our like psyche about like how decentralized tech is better, right? And so you step back from that and then you go, okay, well, we're DeFi, right? We can do everything that CeFi can do, right? And then like someone turns up and goes, okay, cool, I just want a safe place to put my XRP. And we're like, oh, no, you can't do that. And in fact, not only can't you do that, but you shouldn't do that, and you're an idiot for even wanting to, right? And they're like, I guess I'll go back to Binance then if that's like, and there's just so many of these things where we are like, we've got a set of tools, and anything that anyone wants to do that those tools can't do, we just dismiss, right? And we're like, don't do it, it's not good, whatever, right? And so when you start from first principles and say like, what is a Binance user doing, right? That's where the activities happen. You look at it and it's like mainly custody, right? They just want a place to put their Bitcoin, like actual Bitcoin, not wrap Bitcoin, Justin Sun's takeover Bitcoin, whatever, right? Like, actual BTC. They just want a safe place to put Bitcoin that they're not going to lose it, right? And again, we understand the trade-offs of like, okay, well, if you give your Bitcoin to SBF, that's going to be dangerous, right? And you probably shouldn't, right? People don't care about something being non-custodial. FTX blows up, everyone's like, YOLO, straight back to Binance, right? So the question, I guess, is like, what are the features that people want from a platform like this? And do we have the infra to support it? And the answer is yes, we do today, right? Like finally, we've got enough stuff. We've got Turnkey, which allows us to do like MPC, private key management. We've now got chain signatures, which allows us to do like some cross-chain swaps and things on non-smart contract chains, which by the way is like what 90% of the world holds, right? Litecoin, Bitcoin, Ripple, things that don't do anything. And then we've got like spot swaps and stuff. And, like these are all solved problems, but you can't say to someone, we are DeFi, we've got everything that you want, and then show them the Uniswap interface, the Curve interface, and the Aave interface. Like, that's just not a credible path to adoption, right? You need to give them an actual platform that they can log into, where all their assets are, where they are able to do all the jobs that they want to do, whether it's spot swaps or margin or perps or whatever. It needs to be in a single platform. And it needs, that's moving away from, hey, we're DeFi and we're this amorphous cloud of features, right? To here's a thing that genuinely competes with Binance. And again, it's only been in the last like 6 to 12 months, I think this has been possible. And so, hopefully we're there. I think we're at a point where the infrastructure is ready.
And I think, with the whole crate run campaign, you hit over $100 million in TBL. Like, what did that feel like, just building something and then people just aping and bridging funds? Did you feel vindicated by, I guess, your approach?
I mean, like, look, that's not my first, yield farming Ponzi game that I played, right? And wasn't even my most successful. So I didn't feel much, to be totally honest with you. I was like, yeah, it's good. Like, if it had been like $1 billion, I would have been like, all right, I'm kind of impressed, right? So, I still think we have some work to do. For me, the next target is like, we've got to get to $1 billion in TBL. So our next campaigns are going to be focused on much larger adoption. So, yeah, it was exciting in a slightly underwhelming way, I would say, is the honest answer.
Yeah, I totally understand. I think the challenge you might have might not come from the user experience and the abstraction, because like you said, that those things are coming into place. The next challenge will be on the cost side, because like you said, if you're exchanging things on CZ's database, they can compete costs and fees and everything else like very low. But if you're actually doing things on chain and, even executing, if you're going to be executing on like a non-central limit order book way where there's always going to be like extra fees, obviously it doesn't matter for small fish. And you can get like a ton of small fish and build a big business. But for like the larger whales that care about like an extra 5 bips of costs, is that going to be challenging, or are you just going to focus on them later once you get all the small fish?
So here's the interesting thing. I've been talking to market makers for a long time for different reasons about, why are you not on chain or whatever, right? And the answers that they give you are lies. And I think there's a reason why they lie. They're lying to themselves, right? They're like, oh, it's because of lack of APIs or whatever, like, the tech's not ready, etc. Honestly, the answer is, there is less uninformed flow in DEXs than there are in SEXs. That's why market makers are not there in size, right? I promise you that if you had if Binance imploded, if all the centralized exchanges imploded tomorrow and all of a sudden everyone was trading perps on DYDX, right? The market makers would be there in 20 minutes. In size, they would be there, right? The key is you got to get retail flow. You've got to get uninformed flow onto these platforms in order to drive large traders there. That's what they want to be trading against, right? And so, when we talk about like costs, of gas, like on Solana and L2s, like it's really nothing.
Yeah, it's not really the gas. I think we're talking more about
spreads.
Yeah, like slippage spreads. Yeah,
I think spreads tighten when you get, if you bring uninformed, if you make it really easy and you have uninformed flow, because the uninformed flow doesn't care about the spread, right? It's market makers chase those fish, right? Like the bait fish are swimming in one direction and, the bigger fish and the sharks are following them, right? And so, you've got to get the people over there. And the reality is that, like right now, you're better off trading on Binance if you're uninformed flow. That's where you should be. Right, it's easier and simpler, and you can do all the things you want. Like if you want to be trading between Doge and XRP, like you have to be on Binance. Like that's just like it's just so obviously true, right? We've deluded ourselves into being like, yeah, but like people shouldn't be trading XRP, so just come on chain. It's cool, right? Like it's nonsense, honestly. Like you have to give them everything that they want. And then once you do, right, like you give people everything that they want from Binance and you trick them into, not noticing that it's all on chain, right? They still need to know why. They still need to know why they're coming across. There still needs to be something new for them, something novel. And that's where I think that we will have an advantage, in that there's so many crazy things that people are building all the time on chain, that an on-chain platform can integrate much faster than CeFi.
No, I like the vision. It's like the WhatsApp thing. Get a bunch of users, and then you'll find ways to make products and monetize the whole thing later. We'll move on to our last segment. I know you came prepared, so we have a pasta of the week segment. I'm sure there's some graphics going on right now. Maybe Justin, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, I can do that here. I think it's pretty topical here, as we've had this L2 discussion. So Joe Rogan had Peter Thiel on, and while Peter Thiel may have some really compelling ideas, he's like one of the toughest guys to listen to. So I actually sat down, listened to this whole podcast. He's a really tough speaker to listen to, and this clip really highlights that. So here, just imagine you're asking an Ethereum maxi, maybe someone like myself, if L2s are Ethereum, then why do they each have their own token? And here's Peter Thiel's reasoning.
It is, well, there's several different things one could say.
There's just several things one could say. So take it from Peter Thiel. It's a tough narrative to explain away.
I was going to use something similar, so I'm going to change my pasta slightly, because that Peter Thiel segment is just used for so many things.
It's so perfect. It's just amazing.
I was going to use one that it says, like, so where does the yield come from? And then break that.
It's interesting. Like, it's hard to imagine someone so successful, so influential, but not the best orator, right? Like, usually it's a complete package where you have someone that's an incredible orator, like yourself, Kain, that's also moving the needle in an industry, but not for Thiel, I suppose.
I mean, he kind of sits in the background a lot, right? Like, you don't see him talk that much.
He speaks through JD Vance, from my understanding.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Thank you. You want to go next?
Yeah, so, Kain was talking about uninformed flow, and it reminded me of this particular, pumped out fun, I guess, meme coin deployer. There's this, yeah, you can just play this clip, right? There's this coin called No Hands, and it's like this dev that, has a sign that says, I have no hands. And then he's just like, every minute or so, he's like, just sells his tokens for 7 SOL, and people are still buying the token. And this is like, definitely the flow that you want, Kain, right? Like, just,
yeah.
People look at the green candles. He just keeps selling. He sells 67 million hands for 7 SOL. No hands, no rug.
Well, let's be clear. He's no dev, right? He clicked a button on pump.fun. I think calling him a dev is a bit generous, no?
Well, he's doing something on chain.
He is.
He is being paid for the entertainment that he's giving people.
It's art. It's art and entertainment.
And seven souls, like $1,000, like $1,000 per minute. I mean, he's killing it. Good for him.
So Kain, give us what is the pasta you're using for this week?
I mean, you guys have already posted it, but like I can't get over this one. Just the Vitalik tweet. Like I've been told to do less philosophizing and more Ethereum bull posting. Like that's the month for me. I can't even tell you how. When I hadn't seen this yet, and then you guys put it up, like I was kind of in shock for like 5 minutes. I'm like, did someone compromise Vitalik's account again? Like, what's going on here?
And this is a 2-for-1 pasta, because you have the pasta on the bull. Ethereum is good. Like this is something that's being repeated in chats everywhere.
That's something that I feel like that's something that I've said in the past as well. Ethereum is good. I don't know.
Well, is Vitalik's sort of shift because of you, Kain? Like, are you responsible for this? Maybe this is a slight reference.
Vitalik? No way. I would be utterly shocked. Look, it's actually funny. I've met Vitalik a few times, right? And I ran into him in Brussels, and he just completely brushed me. Didn't even recognize me. I was like, hey, just walked straight past me.
I had a nice chat with Vitalik in Brussels, too. He spoke right after me at a Lens event.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. No, I don't think I'm 100% on Vitalik's radar.
All right, so I don't feel bad. He had no idea who I was.
No.
He's like, who are you, Justin? I was like, Steady Lads? Didn't resonate.
Steady Lads. They don't have that channel up in the Ethereum Foundation tower, that ivory tower.
It's mostly just Bankless playing on repeat.
We're in the swamps. All right, I have found a new pasta that I like. Can bring this one up, Justin. Yeah, so Tron apparently Justin's son said he's doing meme coins now, and there's some people that are believing that he's going to support the meme coins because he's going to want this narrative to grow. So this is the exit liquidity bridging to Tron. We got these dudes just so daintily. Is this a ballet class? I don't know what's going on, but this is exactly how I feel like the exit liquidity is looking like right now.
I actually found it. I found my post from 2021 here. I think I did when spaces were first coming out. I was like, oh, I'm going to do a space. Check this out, right? And they're like, what's the topic? And I was like, ironically, like, is Ethereum good? So
Wasn't this near the top? April 14th,
yeah, probably.
2021.
Of course it was.
Ethereum is definitely good.
All right, Kain, 6 to 12 months from now, Ethereum price up, down, sideways?
Oh, 100% up.
100% up. Is there any period in history where I could have asked you that and you would have said down?
No.
All right, there we go.
So there you go. It's
It's
just
always
noise.
Yeah, there's no signal in that. But this time it's true. This time
it's different.
This time, trust me.
Last chance to buy under 3K.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been one of our best shows, I would say. I really enjoyed it. Thank you, Kain. We got through a lot of the group therapy things we were hoping to get through. So thanks, everybody. Vote for the pasta of the week. I think we'll have the poll up soon. And we'll see you next week. Cheers again.
Thanks, everyone.